was on vacation, and in that time, oh my goodness, I was able to complete this great book that we are going to discuss in a few moments. Because, as I have as the title of this show, it is EI's secret sauce. And what's EI for those people who do not know? It is emotional intelligence, which is, as Daniel Goleman, who is the chief architect of emotional intelligence, says, it is the sine qua non of leadership. It is that essential thing. And when I read this book during my vacation last week, I said, oh my goodness, I have to start the next show. Not start the next show, do the next show around this amazing book. So we're going to get into it in just one moment. Of course, I am Dawn Marie Morris, the Chief Training Officer of the World Class Training Institute, where our mission is to maximize human capital. And we do that through the delivery of leadership and professional development training programs. So everything in your wheelhouse, from emotional intelligence, which we call EI over everything, to delegation, personality assessments. We're Master DISC certified. Anything related to executive leadership training, executive coaching, time management, prioritization, conflict resolution, communication strategies, public speaking skills, all of those things to help you be your best professionally are in our wheelhouse. So to connect with us, you can always go to worldclasstraining.net. And also our latest book, the last one that I wrote, and I'm going to be doing a new one soon, it's coming, is Unpacking Agape, though, the 7 languages of intentional leadership. So you can grab that at worldclasstraining.net/agape. That's worldclasstraining.net/agape. And we call them languages because the best way language is spoken is through behavior. So it covers and it shares 7 behaviors that leaders will exemplify if they are operating from a place of servant leadership, which should be the place where leaders operate all the time. That's the best way to be a leader, is to serve somebody, right? So go ahead and grab that at worldclasstraining.net/agape. Now, the book that I read during my vacation was The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. So some people are familiar with Mel Robbins because she has that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 philosophy, where she says, some days you don't want to get up out of bed, and when you don't want to get up, just count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and get up. I shared that with a friend of mine, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, Mel. But I still appreciate the thought around that. You just got to make it happen. Now, the Let Them theory, though, is definitely EI's secret sauce. The reason I say that is because it really helps us to have some strategies around how to execute some of the components of emotional intelligence. So before we get back into this, I do want to share the components of emotional intelligence for you. The components of emotional intelligence are self-awareness and self-regulation. So when you're thinking about the dimensions of EI and self-awareness and self-regulation, that's kind of at the top of the spectrum on the EI grid, so to speak. So self-awareness is paying attention to how we're feeling in a moment and being able to kind of interrupt our amygdala when it's rising so that we do not go off the rails, or so that we know how to handle situations of, I say, eustress or distress properly, because we're paying attention to our bodies. I also teach personal training, and they always say, listen to your body. So this is about listening to your mind, right? So that's that self-awareness part. Self-regulation is the part where you are able to determine by interrupters in your spirit or interrupters in your mind, what is the next right move, right? So that's that self part. The social part of the EI spectrum, or the others part, as they also call it, is about social awareness and social regulation. And in my opinion, that is where the let them theory really shines. And that's where I say it becomes the secret sauce. So social awareness is about being able to temperature check, right? So it's about having empathy. It's about being able to really pay attention to what's going on with the other person or other persons. And then that social regulation is now, how do you handle other people? And that's where I believe Mel Robbins is talking about let them, right? So I'm not going to spoil it, because you do want to definitely go read the book, but I'm going to share with you all the piece that told me, you know what, Dawn, you have got to talk about this when you come back. So she talks about you letting people stress you out and how to handle life stressors. And so this line right here is the part that said, Dawn, you've got to talk about this. So this one is speaking about email and other people saying certain things to you. And this particular line is the one I underlined in the book. The fact is, not every email warrants a response, and not every conversation needs your participation. And you do not always have to have the last word. And as the famous saying goes, your silence can't be misquoted. So this whole piece is about, how do you self-regulate and socially regulate? How do you determine what is the next right move? And then from that is the deliverable to the person. How do you socially regulate? Do you respond or not? And if you respond, do you have to have the last word? Are you someone who can retreat and be okay with that? And if you do have to communicate with someone else, how are you able to do that effectively? So when we're talking about the let them theory, what Mel Robbins is saying as an overarching premise is, let them. So somebody does something to you, let them. Somebody doesn't communicate in the way that is best suited for your psyche, let them. Someone jumps the gun and does something before you think it's time, let them. So that let them is that piece where you are taking charge of how you are regulating the situation. Now, the other piece to that is she also says, let them, let me. So what's the let me part? So the let me part is that self-regulation. So now I say, okay, this person communicated in a way that is not in line with my principles and my values. Let them. I'm not going to get stressed out about it. I'm not going to get go off the rails about it. Let them. Let me determine what my next right move is based on how that person has communicated with me. So I'll give you all an example. Last week, I had a situation where I was talking to a friend of mine, and that person behaved in a manner that was totally against how I like to be treated. I'm talking to them. I was ready to leave. I said, okay, are you going to walk me to the door? And the person just sat there and made a disparaging comment. And because I had already read this book, I paused and I said, let them. Let me not have the last word. Let me exit this moment, because this is not going to end well. if we continue to have the conversation in this particular arena. So let them is about taking time to have social awareness, what's really going on, socially regulate, let them. Okay. And then the let me is now, how do I self-regulate so that I can do the best thing for me in that moment? So this is a great, great book for helping EI breathe and give life to individual situations that you are going to have that you need to quickly figure out what's my next right move. Now, in addition to the part about the stressors, Mel Robbins did a great job of talking about situations where people, in her example, she talked about people who may be addicts or people who have debilitating behaviors, and you don't want them to behave like that, but it's not in your control to fix. So what should you do to handle those types of situations? So I'm going to quickly, and again, I do want you to get the book. I don't want to share everything, but these particular principles were ones that I definitely took as takeaways. And I believe, again, that they're a part of the EI secret sauce. So this one here, I'm going to share with you all, were 3 pieces related to how to, let's see. You know what? Here we go. Let's see. Here we go. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. So I wanted to make sure that I could show my videos because they're so good, my slides. So let's start actually with the third one, and then we're going to come back. So she has what's called the ABC method for situations where you can't control how another person behaves, and you want to be able to move through the moment so that you're not stressed out about it and you're not carrying more weight in that situation than you should. So what does it look like? It's called the ABC method. Now, the first thing that you do when you notice that someone is, let's say in her, for example, in the book, it stated that the person's husband had a weight problem. So the wife didn't like that the husband was overeating. He wasn't working out. It was bad for his health. Other factors were coming into play that were not a part of what she thought was going to be beneficial to her husband. So she could have come down on him and started to degrade him in a number of different ways. But instead, what was implemented was this ABC method. So again, here it is. First thing is apologize and ask questions. So I thought about that for a minute. I was like, apologize and ask questions. Okay, because I know some people who and they may say some stuff about me. I don't know. They may say that I need some help too, because I probably do need some help. But I know some people who need some help. And so that apologize kind of got me for a minute until I started thinking about it. So you don't necessarily have to apologize for doing anything wrong if you have not, but you may want to apologize for not necessarily understanding that person's position. So going back to the piece where we talked about the weight situation with the husband, the wife might just want to say, hon, I apologize for not really paying attention to what might be going on with you that is creating your dietary habits or your unwillingness to work out and maintain your health. So that's on that level. If I'm at work and I'm noticing that someone is constantly late, I don't necessarily, although you can't be late for work, I don't necessarily want to disparage them, but I want to first start by, if I have, not socially regulated properly, I might want to say, hey, can we have a moment? First, let me apologize for perhaps not being sensitive to what may be going on with you and the reason that you are not coming to work on time. So by you kind of settling in like that, you are taking down the defenses of the other person. So you definitely want to start with that, hey, I apologize. I might have misunderstood what you meant by what you said the other day. And then the other piece of that is ask questions. So you apologize first, you lower down the defenses of the other person, and then you ask questions. Now, here you need to be careful, because when you ask questions, you do not want to ask questions in a way where you're still trying to dig at the other person. You are now in that seek to understand, then to be understood realm. So when you seek to understand first, you are asking questions. I'll go back to the piece where if someone hasn't communicated properly to you and you're not sure why, some of the questions that you may ask are, what was it that I said that was disturbing to you? Or you may say, what could I have said differently that would have yielded a different response? Or what about like the person who I may go back to and speak about how the communication went last week that I wasn't necessarily happy with. When I go back and address that individual, I can start with, I apologize if I did something that was off-putting. Was there something that I said or something in the way that I behaved that caused you to react in the way that you did? And coming from a place where I'm really interested in learning more about that person's thought process and what drove the reaction that I received. So you see how by doing that, and again, really listening and seeking to understand, not seeking to respond or seeking to react, but seeking to understand, then you have the opportunity of a more positive response. Okay. Second thing with this is, so you apologize and ask questions, and then B, back off. Now, again, I tell leaders often that when you are having performance management discussions, when you leave it in the room, you leave it in the room. You do not want to go have a performance management discussion and now you are still carrying the heaviness of the discussion onto the work floor. When you're finished, you're finished. Now, in a relationship, Mel Robbins suggests 6 months. Now, depending on the situation, you may or may not be able to give it 6 months. So for instance, if we're talking about somebody who's been consistently tardy or somebody who's not communicating in what we would consider to be a professional manner at work, you cannot necessarily back off for 6 months. But what you can do is, if you see that person do it again, right? I suggest that the window when you're talking about people who misbehave at work is a 14-day window. In 14 days, you don't say anything. You watch their behavior so that they have time to course correct. Now, if in fact in that 14 days the person is late or the person yells at someone again or the person miscommunicates with you, then of course you have to address it again. But if you've thoroughly done that, double down with the asking questions and then getting a level of understanding, you can back off for 14 days and just watch what's going on. And the other thing I tell people is you want to separate the person from the problem. So because there may be a problem with the person's behavior or the person's work performance, it does not necessarily mean that this is a bad person. It means that there is a problem with their work performance or their behavior at work. So you want to separate those two so that you can focus on, let's fix this if we can, and then we can handle the person with the highest level of respect and decency, because that is, of course, what they deserve. So even if you're having a problem with someone, make sure that you don't let that problem override the fact of realizing and recognizing that this is a human being and human beings deserve human kindness. All right. Last one. So we've apologized and asked questions. We've backed off. And the next thing that we do is celebrate. So this one is so important and it's often missed. We bring people in because we want to complain. We sit down and ask questions. We might even back off. But do we bring that person back to say, thank you? Thank you for making the adjustment. Thank you for being better. Thank you for, I'm trying to get my picture back. Thank you for doing better, being better. Here we go. Thank you for making the adjustment after our conversation. We have got to do all pieces because that lets the person know what? Number one, it actually did matter to you. Because why fuss? Why have this conversation? Why take time away? And you're watching that they're making the change in behavior. You're watching that they're being better, but you never bring them back to say, I appreciate that you made the adjustment. That person may think, did that even really matter? I've made these changes. I've focused on coming to work every day on time. I focused on being on time for these meetings. I made sure that when people communicate with me, I did not react in a negative way, or I made sure that my email communication was more professional. I made the adjustments, and my boss never came back to say, thank you. It's so important. It seems minor, but it's so important. And even in personal relationships, when we see people make adjustments and see people's behavior improve, just like we take time to bring them to the carpet when things don't go well, we must bring them to the couch and celebrate when things go well. So I thought that this was an excellent theory. I'm going to show it again. The ABC method, you'll find it in the book. It's A, apologize and ask questions. B, back off. I'll give them space to make the adjustments. And C, celebrate. A, B, C. Yeah. The let them theory. It's a New York Times bestseller. It's such a simple principle, but it is EI's secret sauce because it gives you a real quick way, a real easy way to self-regulate, socially regulate, because you have heightened social awareness. You're like, hey, oh, that didn't feel good. They said that? Let them. let me choose the proper response. So it's let them, let me. And as Mel Robbins talks about in the book, that is your power ownership when you do that let me part. All right, let them, let me. That is EI's secret sauce. I do encourage you to grab the book, The Let Them Theory. Great book by Mel Robbins. Gives you, even at the end, gives you some additional resources to use as well, as you are executing this theory. But again, it's so easy. It's so simple. I think that's why it's become a #1 bestseller, because it's so easy to implement. It's like, oh, it's automatically, for me, it's automatically a calming when you see someone or you recognize that somebody is doing something that is against either your values, your principles, how you want to be treated, how you want to be handled, something that you don't think they should be doing. Oh, let them. Give people the space to be them. Let me decide what I want to do to either engage or disengage with this person or with the situation. It's a beautiful thing. So, as always, please make sure again to pick up Unpacking Agape, the 7 languages of intentional leadership at worldclasstraining.net/agape. Great book. And I'm the Twitter of book writers. So everything I write is succinct and in under 150 pages. Great book. Please pick that up, worldclasstraining.net/agape. And for all of your leadership and professional development training programs, please contact the World Class Training Institute. We have our website that's shown at the bottom here as well, minus the agape. You can just go to the bottom and make sure that you communicate with me via the form that's at the bottom. You can schedule a meeting with me so we can talk about your organization and how we can help you all. We have a really great program called Team Sync, which is for people who are new executive leaders managing a team. On paper, it looks great, but when you got a new team, especially you have a team of senior leaders, some who are tenured even, there's an interesting dynamic, and there may be great, they may look great on a resume, but collaboration and understanding how to work well together and to meld all of the intelligentsia that is a part of the team is a totally different story. So we have to make sure that we are taking care of these executive level leaders when they come into new teams. We have our intentional leadership program, which is for leaders in an organization to align around their vision, their mission, to talk about how to handle conflicts, delegate effectively, all of those tools, systems thinking. It's so much. Very great program as well. And then, of course, we have individual programs. If you have a niche area that you want developed, we are able to provide customized training for you. And it's all highly interactive activities, role plays, discussions. It's fast moving, and it definitely helps your teams be their best personal and professional self. So again, reach out to us at worldclasstraining.net. And at the World Class Training Institute, always remember that when you are better, we are absolutely better. Take care.